All right, diving in today, we're going to tackle adolescence, that whole journey from kid to grown up.
Yeah.
And get this, we've got a biology textbook to walk us through the whole thing.
Awesome.
So I'm really curious to see what the science has to say.
It's a pretty wild ride.
Oh, I bet.
All those changes.
Okay, so first things first, before we even jump into the nitty-gritty, what actually is adolescence? Because it's got to be more than just they're a teenager.
Right. Oh, for sure. Adolescence, it's that whole transitional period.
Okay.
The whole journey. But puberty, that's the biological part. That's the physical maturing.
Okay, so puberty is a part of adolescence.
Exactly. Think of it like puberty is the fuel, and adolescence is the whole car.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So when does this car usually start moving? When does adolescence typically begin?
Well, it really depends. But on average, around 11 years old is when things start kicking in.
Okay.
And often girls, they kind of start a little bit earlier than boys do.
Interesting. And speaking of things kicking in, I got to ask about the growth spurt.
Oh, yeah.
Because seriously, my friend's son, it was over summer break, he became a giant.
Right. It's insane how fast they grow.
What is going on in their bodies to make them shoot up like that?
Well, it all comes down to their bones, their long bones, specifically, in the arms and legs. They just, elongate super fast.
Wow. So it really is like a growth spurt.
Yeah, it is. And, it's not always the smoothest process.
Right, definitely not. I remember being super awkward, my limbs felt way too long for my body.
That's totally normal because not every part grows at the same rate. So you get these kind of gangly phases, but don't worry, it all evens out eventually.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear. But it's not just about getting taller, right? It's a whole body transformation. What else is going on during puberty?
Oh, yeah. There are so many changes. It's all driven by hormones, mainly testosterone in boys and estrogen in girls.
The hormones, they're like the puppet masters.
Exactly, and they're pulling the strings for a whole bunch of changes.
So let's break those down. What are some of the most noticeable things happening?
Well, for boys, you see facial hair starts coming in, their voices get deeper, their muscles get bigger.
Oh, and let's not forget the Adam's apple. It's suddenly, there it is.
Haha, right. That's actually their larynx, the voice box, growing bigger, and that's what causes those voice cracks too, when their voices are changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a rite of passage. But what about girls? What changes are they going through?
So many. Their breasts develop, their hips widen, and, they start getting their periods, which is called menarche. That's a big one.
Wow, it really is a lot happening for both boys and girls. It's like their bodies are on fast forward.
It really is. And, we've only talked about the physical changes so far, but puberty affects their minds and their emotions too, which is, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really curious about. What's going on in those teenage brains when all this is happening?
Oh, it's a whole lot of change happening up there. Think of it like a construction zone.
A construction zone?
Yeah, yeah. Lots going on. A little chaotic. But ultimately, it's building something amazing. That's their brain.
So, their brains are literally under construction. I like that.
Exactly. You see big growth in the parts of the brain that handle planning, making decisions, controlling impulses.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing. The prefrontal cortex, it's like the CEO of the brain.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's not fully developed yet at this stage.
Oh, so that's why teenagers sometimes make those, not so great decisions.
Exactly. They're still figuring out how to manage those big emotions and think things through before jumping in. It's like having a powerful engine,
Okay.
but not a very experienced driver yet.
Gotcha. So it's not just the hormones causing chaos.
Nope. Their brains are developing right alongside all those hormonal shifts, and that creates a pretty intense experience for them.
Yeah, I can imagine. It makes you appreciate the challenges they're facing.
Right.
Trying to navigate the world with all this stuff happening internally.
Absolutely. It's a vulnerable time, They're figuring out who they are, dealing with social pressures, and those emotions. Oh, they can be all over the place.
It's like they're trying to figure out the rules of the game while the game itself keeps changing.
Perfectly put. They're wrestling with these huge questions like, who am I? Where do I fit in? What's my purpose? It's a time of incredible growth, but also lots of uncertainty and sometimes even self-doubt.
So how can we, as parents, teachers, or even just caring adults, how can we help them through all of this?
Well, first of all, understanding what's going on in their brains and bodies, that's huge. Knowing that these behaviors, they're not always intentional, it's their biology. And that can really change how we react to them.
That's so true. Instead of getting frustrated, we can try to be more understanding.
Right. and create a safe space for them to explore those emotions, even the messy ones. Validate how they're feeling, listen without judgment, and, offer guidance, but don't try to control everything. That can make a world of difference.
It sounds like communication is key.
It really is. Encourage them to talk about what they're going through, the good and the bad, and sometimes just being there and listening, that's enough.
That reminds me of my own teenage years. I wish I had felt more comfortable talking to my parents about some of the stuff I was dealing with.
It's common to look back and wish things were different, but the important thing is we learn from those experiences and use that knowledge to support the teenagers in our lives now.
I love that. Okay, so communication is important. What else can we do to help teenagers thrive during this, super critical time? We've talked about the brain, the emotions, but what about their bodies? What can we do to actually support their physical health during all these changes?
Oh, that's so important. And you're right, it's all connected. One of the biggest things, honestly, is nutrition. Their bodies are working so hard, growing so fast. They need the right fuel, right?
Totally makes sense. But what does a balanced diet even look like for a teenager?
Right.
Is it just telling them to eat their vegetables?
Uh-huh. Well, it's a good start. But really, it's about providing a mix of nutrients. Things like protein for building muscle, carbohydrates for energy, healthy fats. Those are important for their brains.
Okay.
And of course, all those vitamins and minerals.
That makes sense. But let's be real. Getting a teenager to actually eat healthy can be tough.
Tell me about it. One thing that might help, though, is getting them involved. Like, have them help plan meals, go grocery shopping with you, maybe even learn to cook some things themselves.
Oh, that's a good idea. I bet if they're part of the process, they're more likely to actually eat it.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of leading by example. Teenagers, they watch what we do more than they listen to what we say.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we got the fuel covered. What about other aspects of their physical well-being? What else should we be thinking about?
Well, hygiene becomes even more important during puberty with all the hormonal changes and everything.
Ah, yes, the teenage years. I remember those days.
Right. Daily showers, they're crucial, especially as their sweat glands get more active. And, for girls, good hygiene habits during their periods are super important too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is a good time to also talk about just having open communication by making sure they have accurate information about all these changes, right?
Absolutely. They need to understand what's happening to their bodies. It helps them feel more confident and in control. So clear, factual information about puberty, menstruation, all of it, it's really important.
And I guess that's where parents, educators, even healthcare providers all play a role.
Exactly. We need to create an environment where teenagers feel comfortable asking questions, getting the information they need. We have to be those trusted sources.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that adolescence isn't just about managing the challenges. It's also about nurturing the incredible potential that emerges during this time.
Couldn't agree more. We can encourage healthy ways to deal with stress, like exercise, maybe some mindfulness techniques, or even creative outlets. And most importantly, let them know it's okay to talk about their feelings and that they're not alone in all of this.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day struggles and forget that, this is a period of huge growth and transformation.
It really is. And with the right support and guidance, it can be an amazing experience.
Well said. It's been so fascinating exploring the world of adolescence with you today.
My pleasure.
Thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.